All right, so today we're chucking in this internal door. I'm going to take you guys through the entire process, show you what I do to get it right. The door I'm using right now is an 820 by 2040, and you can see with the internal doors, I always pick them up and always use them with the hinges already rebaited into the door, and I've got the door jamb to match as well, which has the hinges in the door jamb ready to go. This is one good thing about doing internal doors. We don't have to worry about doing any checkouts with the router, but there still is quite a few things we've got to get right. And the first thing we're going to do is jump outside on the miter saw, and we're going to pre-cut everything we need. All right, so to start with, we've got our door jamb here. I'm just going to open everything up. All right, so I've got my header here. We'll cut that one down in a second. But the other two pieces we're looking at right now is the sides. We've obviously got the hinge side, which has a hinges top and bottom. I'm just going to put these aside for now too. But then we've also got our latch side. Now, for some door jambs and doors that you get, they come with the striker plate already pre-installed in the jamb, and you've got everything checked out on your door so you can easily put the handle in. Obviously, this one doesn't have it. If you do have that though, there's one extra step that you can do, and I'll show you that in a second. But for now, I'm going to leave everything here and just take the hinge side of the jamb and just quickly go back inside to where that door is. And what we're going to do is we'll get this door, I'm going to put it on its edge with the hinges facing up. And then what I want to do is get the door jamb, and with the nail punch, I'm just going to hit those pins out. And with the pins out, we're just going to line the hinges up with the hinges on the door. And the reason we're doing this is we want to mark where the top and the bottom of the door is. So I'm going to mark there, and do the same thing down at the bottom. And at this point too, I'm just going to mark T for the top of the door and the top of the jamb, so that when I cut everything, I don't forget which way the top is. If you don't know exactly which way the top is, you can even stand it up with everything in place. And I can tell this is a top here, because the way I'm going to install this door in the jamb is for the jamb to sit in like that, and my door's going to swing out this way. For now though, I can leave my door here. And just a special note as well, if you are working with these internal doors, they are hollow and they're really prone to bowing over time. So right now I'm leaving it leaning against this wall. I'm happy to do that for a couple minutes because it's not going to bow in a couple minutes. But if you do buy a door like this and you're going to install it, when you get it and you're not using it, lay it down flat. You don't want to have it on an angle like this, because if you leave it like this for a few days before you install it, that's when you get a bow in the door, and it can be a nightmare getting rid of that bow. That might mean that when you shut the door, the handle doesn't actually line up with the striking plate, and you can get a few issues down the track from that. Anyway, I've got this jamb, we've got the top mark, and we've also got ourselves the bottom mark down there. So let's head back out to that saw. And actually, I did say that if you do have a door that's already got the handle installed and you've got the jamb that has a striker plate in it, there is one other thing you got to do, and that is pretty much doing exactly what we did there with the hinges, but lining up that striker plate with the door handle. You want to line them up to make sure that that door handle is going right into the middle of the striker plate, and then we'll do the same thing, and you'll mark the top and the bottom of that jamb. If you don't do that, it means that once you install your jamb, there's a good chance that that striker plate that's already installed might not line up with that door handle, meaning you've just wasted that jamb and you're going to have to redo it anyway. Since this one doesn't have a door handle though, it doesn't matter where I cut this jamb as long as it's the right measure. All right, so we've obviously got this mark here, which is the top of the door. What we're going to be doing though is going up 9mm from that mark, and this is going to be where we're cutting the door jamb off at. It's going to square it across so you can easily see it, but the reason we do that 9mm is firstly, we want a 3mm gap from the top of the door to the top of the door jamb, and then secondly, the top of the door jamb is actually going to be recessed out like this, and the sides are going to go into that, which is that other 6mm, meaning that once that's on, we're going to have 3mm from here to the top of the door. And for the bottom of our jamb, I'm going to come down 25mm, and that's where I'm cutting it off at. Now I'm doing this because we don't have finished floor yet, and inside I'm still going to be building it up with tile underlay and putting tiles down as well. If I was installing this jamb onto finished floor, I'd probably only go down 10mm and cut it off there instead. Now for the latch side, if you did have that pre-installed handle and you mark the top and the bottom of the door, what you do is grab that same measurement from the top mark, and then for the bottom, instead of going down 25, we'll go down 22 instead. We want this one to be slightly smaller than what the other hinge side is, and I'll explain why in a second. In this instance though, all I'm going to do is measure the hinge side, and I've got 2.72 meters, and I'm just going to mark the latch side and make it 3 mils smaller. What I'm actually going to do first is run the saw through, cut off the end grain on one side, and then we'll remeasure it and make it that 3 mils smaller. Alright, so for the header, we've got one side already rebaited. The jamb thickness is 18 mil, and this rebate is right on 18 mil. So I'm just going to run the saw down and cut off this little excess bit here and get rid of that straight away. And then to measure this, I'm going to hook over the inside of that rebate there. Our door is 820. So we've got 820 there. We want 6 mil for a 3 mil quirk either side. Instead of marking 826, I always like to go 827. It just always works out perfectly. Same as when I'm cutting architraves. Instead of adding 6 mil, we always give it that 1 extra mil, and it always seems to work out perfectly from there. Then what we're going to be doing is recessing this down by 6 mil across 18 mil and then cutting it off there. So what we can do, and I know some different people do this different ways, but I'm just going to mark the back right now. We'll mark that 863, hooking over the outside of that recess. Cut that, and I always like to set this up using an off-cut piece. What I might even do is just mark our depth of 6 mil on the side of this one. A bit hard to see in here, but we've got this little tab, and most miter saws are going to have this. And what I can do is pull that out, and then you can see that miter saw stops at a certain height. We've also got this little dial here, and I can spin this, and this is adjusting the depth of what our miter saw is going down to. So what I like to do is keep pressure, pushing that down. I've got my mark on the side of this block here. I'm going to line that up with the deepest part of the blade, and we're just going to keep going down until they line up together. And I can also double check it by getting this piece here, which has already been rebaited. Put the saw down, and it should just touch. So obviously the saw doesn't go all the way through, so you're going to have to do half of it from one side. Then you can spin it around and do the other side. Another thing we can do as well is just get a block or another bit of jamb like that, shove it against the base plate. Ideally, you probably don't want something as wide as this. Might even just use an off-cut bit of architrave like that, and that's going to hold this out further from the miter saw, so it should be able to go through and cut all the way through that jamb. Alright, so next up, we want to go through and pre-cut all of our architraves. If you're doing this as a new build and you're going through hanging heaps of doors, I'd set up a stop. I'd probably use a better bench than this to bolt one, but I'd set up a stop so you can butt your architraves into it, have a couple stacked on top of each other like this, and just cut heaps at once. We're not doing that today, so I'm just going to cut them one at a time. Alright, so first of all, I'm just going to measure all of these individually. But for the side arcs, we're going to be doing them at the same measurement for each side, and we're going to need 4 of these in total. Obviously 2 for one side of the door, 2 for the other side. I'm going to cut all of these at 2068. And that 2068 is once again for an unfinished floor. If you're doing your doors once floorboards are down, I'd almost recommend measuring them at the end and making sure you've got that arc being millimeter perfect with the ground. I'm just going to set this to the 45 though, and that 2068 is the short point. So that's one cut. And the other thing we got to think about is that we cut two with the angles going that way, and then two with the bevel on the inside and the angles going the other way. All right, so that's all four sides cut. You see what I mean? We got the bevels there. You got to make sure you've cut two going that way, two going the other way, because obviously you can't double them up, and they have to go the way that you've cut them. And for the header, we're obviously going to do two angles going either way. For this, we're measuring short point to short point. And the way to do that is you don't want to cut at first angle, because it's impossible to hook your tape. Not impossible, but it's really difficult to hook your tape over and get an exact measurement from the short point. So what we want to do is cut this and make it 833. And to do that, we're going to measure in. Firstly, I'm marking 100 mil here. And then we're going to add that 100 mil to the 833. And we're going to make that one 933. Then we've got both of these marks here, which are exactly 833 apart. We're going to cut both of those on the angle, and then they're going to make an exact 833 short point to short point. There we go, we've got the short point to short point. It's going to look just like that. And once again, we need two of these, one to go on either side of the door. All right, so we're almost ready to go. The last few things we need to cut are our door stops. To start with, we'll do the stop that goes across the header. And this one is just going to sit in between there. So we measured this before, and in between the inside of our door header, we've got the 827. We've allowed that one extra mil. For the header on the doorstop though, I'm going to neglect that 1 mil. We'll quickly just cut the factory cut off. And I'm going to go 826 instead of 827. And the reason for that is I don't mind if there's like half a mil gap or a quarter of a mil gap either side of this doorstop, as we are going to paint over it and that will get covered. I'd rather it be a little bit smaller than the other way around, where it's a bit bigger and actually pushes against the jamb and could actually make that jamb bow out at the top. And then we've got our two sides here, and I'm just going to cut both of these at 2060. Alright, so there we go. It takes a little bit of time to prep everything. We've got everything now pre-cut that we need. But now it's time to actually jump inside, and we can finally start assembling the door jamb and hanging the door. Alright, so with everything cut, the first thing I want to do is go through and plumb up the hinge side. If I put my level on it, it's actually not too bad. There's a bit of a rock in the middle. Well, actually, I'll take that back. It is pretty bad when you look at the top. The way I plumb this up and get it straight is by using masonite packers. And I've got a piece here, and these masonite packers are 3 mil. So obviously if I'm trying to get this dead plumb with only using 3 mil packers, you can't get it super close. What I normally do when I'm going through pre-cutting everything is I also get my planer out, and I'll plane these down to different sizes. I'm going to set my planer to 1 mil. I'm going to firstly go through, take a mil off the entire thing, and I'm just going to snap them up, and that gives me a few packers at 2 mil. And then I'll also do 2 pass-bys, making the packer 1 mil, And then I've got an arrangement of 1, 2, and 3 mil packers, and then we'll go through and pack the door jamb. Alright, so with my packers, I'm just going to grab them all, and just by hand, I normally twist them and break them off like that. One thing I also do is with all my different slots I've got on the tool belt, I might chuck 1 mil on one side, 2 mil on the other, and 3 mil on the other one. And I'll just keep breaking all of these up. You know what, for this door, I probably don't need to break up too many packers. Most of the time when I'm doing a fix and running through, doing a lot of these internal doors, we're doing a full house, so we get a bit of a system going, and we do as many things at once to make the job as efficient as possible. And that's also one of the reasons on why we cut the latch side to be 3 mil smaller than what the hinge side is. And the reason we do that is because you're not going through and leveling the floor for every single door. So right now, I haven't checked it, but in case this floor is at a level and I cut those jambs at the same height, I'm putting the hinge side hard down to the ground, and then in case that floor is sloping up that way, if I made both jambs the right size, even if it's out by 1 mil, it means that this side of the jamb is going to sit 1 mil higher than the door. To combat that, we're taking 3 mil off the latch side, so that once we put this side in, we do have some play and we can move that up and down to make it work. Since the floor hasn't been tiled yet, it also means that we're going to tile up past the door jamb anyway, so even though that's 3 mil smaller, you're not going to notice it. So, when we come to packing this jamb out, what I normally do is I'll go through, I'll get 2 of my masonite packers that haven't been ripped down. So I've got 6 mil right here. I'm going to shoot them right at the bottom, roughly at the height the hinges go, which is about here. For now, I'm just using a battery gun. This is my 15 gauge fixer. Normally you would be using air guns. This 15 gauge is probably going to leave slightly bigger nail holes, but I'm the one going through painting this, so I'm the one that's going to suffer with it. I've actually never seen anyone else do it this way, but what I'm doing is actually holding 3 packers up. I don't know if you can tell, but I've got 3 packers there. I'm going to get 2 nails into that. And the reason I do that is because my fixing gun, unless I'm playing around and backing it off before every shot, which I don't want to do, it's going to shoot those fixing nails all the way through that first one, so I can easily just pull that off. So I'm going to pull that off now. Then we've only got the 2 packers there. I'm going to get my hammer, hit those nails flush, and then we're good to work off that. Alright, so it's a bit hard to get everything in the same shot, but what I'm going to do now is get my 2 meter, we're going to push it hard up against those packers we put at the bottom, and I'm going to plumb it up, and I'm going to be putting some more packers on roughly about where my hand is, which is where those upper hinges go. It's quite important to make sure your packers go right where the hinges are. You can normally get a bit of a feel for it. I've actually got the door sitting in front of me, so I can kind of sight it. Obviously the door is going to be a bit higher up off the ground. For starters, what I normally do is I grab the same amount, which is the 2 3 mil packers. I put my level on it. In this case, we're not looking too bad, so I can get one of the 1 millers that we ripped down. I'm going to slide it in there, and yeah, we're just going to play around with it until we get this dead plumb. And it is important that we do get that dead plumb. I'm really happy with that right now, so I'm going to do the same thing I did before. Get my spare 3 mil packer, sit that on the top, and actually before I shoot them, what I want to do is get the small 1 mil packer that I ripped down and put that behind the other 2, because we're shooting some thin nails into it and it's going to be hard to hold that 1 mil packer in. So I'd rather get the 3 mil packer in the outside so we've got more meat to shoot into. I'm going to get the other 3 mil packer that I'm using just to let the nails set back a little bit. 2 pins, thought that second one, oh, it did fire, but there we go. You can see that packer dropped off, the nails are going straight through. And I just find it easier doing it that way, rather than spending the time to back off the gun, get your nails in, and then when we go through to do the architraves, you're gonna have to set the depth on the gun again. And I think it's easier just to use that spare packer and let the nail go through that first one, and it grabs perfectly into the next 2. So the next thing we're gonna do is just keep holding that level there. Just gonna double check it, and I'm still very happy with everything. You do want to double check it because sometimes when you actually shoot those packers in together, it's gonna pull them in tight and you might lose a mil. So you do want to double check it. I'm happy with that, so I'm gonna get some more packers out, and we're gonna sit these packers right in the middle, about here for now. And let's see how that is. Obviously right now, we don't really need to look at the bubbles. As long as it's hitting that top and bottom packer, we're gonna be pretty good. And geez, this stud has a huge bow in it. That's perfect. It's just one 3mm packer right in the middle. Is that shooting? That is. It's going all the way through. All right, cool. So that's the prep work done on that side. We're gonna leave those packers there for now, and now we can jump down and start putting this jamb together. All right, so now we're gonna go through and put the store jamb together. I'm just laying it out in place for where we're gonna stand it. We've got the hinge side there, latch side, and then we've got a header, which is gonna sit here. All right, so before we nail it together, I'm gonna grab some PVA glue and we'll chuck some on here. Where are we? There we go. Just to line up there. It's a bit heavy. Same on this side too. This glue is actually gonna make a bit of a mess. I've gone a bit too heavy. It's gonna wipe some off from the bottom there. But I'm just gonna pull this header up to that hinge side, and I'm just gonna make sure I get that nice and flush. I'm happy with that there. Let's get one pin at the top. Making sure it's hard to at the bottom as well. Just keeping my hands far enough away and shoot that together. I'm also being a bit cautious to make sure that my gun isn't at all angled towards the inside of the jamb. The last thing you want is for your nail to come through and kick through into the inside of the jamb. That's going to become a world of problems. We're trying to get that nail out and then trying to putty up and clean up that jamb so you can still use it. I'm just going to shift this around to make this side square before I nail it. And there we go, it's looking pretty good. Shoot one at the bottom, and let's get a couple in the middle. Something you can do at this stage is actually go through and install one side of the architraves on the door jamb while it's on the ground. Some people do that. The reason I'm not doing it right now though is because this door is really close to the corner, and I'm gonna need to rip that architrave down. I think it's genuinely best to do your architraves once the jamb's installed as well, because in that way you can get your miters perfect, and there's no chance for those miters to crack when you're picking the jamb up and moving it into place. What I'm going to do now is just focus on the hinge side here. And now what you want to do is just move it back and forth to have it flush with the plaster on either side. For any new house, you've got a 90mm stud and 10mm plaster on either side. That makes the wall 110mm, which is the same width of this jamb here, meaning it should be flush on either side. Now I'm working in a renovation, and the old stud I've got here is about 97mm. So if I hook over, it's about 116 actually overall. So I'm gonna need to play around with this a little bit. I'll show you guys what I'm doing to make it work with this house. But if everything's perfect for you guys, yeah, definitely just work on getting this completely flush with both sides of the plaster. And then I'm having it hard up against the ground, push it against those packers, and I'm just gonna shoot a few nails into it. I'm gonna look exactly to where those packers are, and I actually like shooting right through those packers. And that way I know there's not going to be any bows or anything going on there. So I've got two at the top there. Next packer's right here. And once that's done, you just want to get the 2m, and you want to double check that this is dead straight, and more importantly, you want to make sure it's plumb. And yeah, I'm very happy with how that looks right now. All right, so we're just going to leave it like this for now. I'm going to go through at the end and screw everything off. But we've only got that side shot on. It means I can pull this side up and down. We can move it side to side. I want it to be loose like that for now. And we're actually going to grab the door at this point, and we're going to install the door. And when I say install, all we're doing is going to line those hinges up like that and drop these pins back in. Alright, sweet. So with this door in, we're ready to start putting the architraves on, and we're going to be using the architraves to actually get this side of the jamb into the right place. If you've also seen any of my framing videos, one thing I've always said, and I always do when I'm building a new house, is on a wall like this, instead of doing the one stud there, I'll do two studs. And the reason for that is that when we get to this stage of the job and we get our architrave, it is actually going to fit there. So for now, I need to go outside. I'm going to rip this architrave down to fit, And the reason we haven't done it here is because this was already a doorway in the renovation. I'm just putting a new door in here now, and it's definitely going to be a lot easier just to do one rip in the architrave down there, rather than taking apart all the frame, moving it over 45 mil, and even on top of all of that, we have an under purlin, which is landing directly on top of that stud, making that load bearing, and I didn't want to run around and muck around with all of that. I think it looks fine having an architrave in the corner. It's nothing you're going to look at, and I don't personally think it looks disgusting. It just takes a bit more time in this stage. So I might just measure exactly what this is now, and we'll get cutting. So in case you've got to do the same thing, I'm just going to butt into the wall, measure to this side of the jamb there. In this instance, we've got 56 mil, and I'm just going to turn this over to the back. And instead of marking 56 mil, we firstly want a 3 mil quirk, making that 33 mil. And then I normally take off another mil, depending on how good the plaster is. It's pretty bad in this instance because I've done it. I might take off another 2 mil just to make sure that that's good, just to make sure that architrave isn't hitting in the corner and it's going all the way in. And I will go through and cork that corner of the architrave hitting the wall anyway. So instead of 56, we're going to drop that down to 51 mil, and that's going to give us enough room to play with. So I'm going to mark that one there. And I want to get 3 measurements, one in the middle. And that's 56 there as well. And at the bottom, we've also got a 56, which is quite a relief. A lot of the times, your wall isn't going to be perfectly plumb with the door jamb. So I'm just going to run outside. We'll cut this one quickly. And the other one we need to cut as well is going to be our header, because our header's not going to go right into that corner. So for the header, what I'm going to do is just quickly square up from that short point to get that mark at the top. And then I'm just going to measure across that same 52 mil that we're cutting that side architrave off. I'll mark 100 there, which is 0. And then all we're going to be doing is cutting down that line. All right, so I've got the architrave cut, ready to go on. The other thing I have to do though, just because my wall is a bit wider than that 110, is I'm going to grab the planer and just take a couple mil, 3 to be exact, out of the back side of this architrave. One thing I need to make sure I do though, is only take it out of the part that's going to be sitting over the plaster and not hitting anything on this edge here, which is going to sit on the door jamb. And if I hit it the whole way through, it just means I'm making the thickness of that architrave a little bit thinner and we're achieving nothing. So I'm only going to take it out of the back side, and that's something I'm going to have to go through and do with all of my architraves for both sides of the store. Now doing it this way probably isn't the best way to do it because there are a few things that could go wrong. For example, if I took out a little bit too much on the back of this architrave and didn't do the exact same amount on the header, when I go to nail these together, that top corner there, I grabbed the wrong piece, but that corner there wouldn't be flush, it'd be sitting back a little bit. If it's a very small amount, we'll be able to get rid of it when we go through and sand the arcs afterwards. What I would recommend doing though, if your wall was a lot bigger than the 110 door jamb, is actually going out and just custom making your own door jamb, getting a bigger piece of MDF and making that door jamb the exact same width of that wall. For this door though, obviously I haven't done that, but we do have our architraves now and we're ready to go through and shoot them on. So we're going to start in this top corner up here. All right, so what I want to do is get my combo square. I've got that set to 3 mil, and it's going to be our quirk. I'm just going to butt it up that way. I'm going to mark across that way, that 3 mil, and do the same thing down there. And we've got that intersecting point there, which is a corner for where our architraves are going to go. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side. It's a little bit awkward now because that door is in. Probably would recommend doing this before you put that door up. All right, and now I'm just going to grab my first architrave, which is going on this side. Just going to tuck in there behind those hinges, and I'm going to get that exactly to that 3 mil quirk mark. And I'm going to start by shooting it off only to the door jamb. I'm not going to do any nails going into that wall, but it's going to be just shot into the door jamb. Just going to get nice and close. And yep, very happy with that. And all I'm going to be doing is marking that quirk at the top, and for the rest of the way, I'm just going to sight and hold it at exactly that 3mm. Alright, so next up, we're going to grab the architrave that goes on top of the door. Just going to sit it there for 1 second while I get my PVA glue out, and we're just going to do a tiny bit of PVA on the miter. There we go. Shut that door, and let's get this one right. So that first corner's looking good. Just making sure that length is good, which it is. And for this one, same thing, we're only shooting it into the door jamb for now. Do one nail there, get it right on its line there. Sweet, and I'm just gonna sight, make sure there's no bows. I've got a couple nails in there. Now what we're gonna be doing, because this door jamb still has movement, we're gonna be using the architrave to actually shoot that door jamb off into place. And the way I like to do it is by grabbing one of these masonite packers. They're exactly 3mm. You can double check it on this side here. And whatever gap we have right there is the same gap we want on the other side of the door. So I'm just gonna open that door up slightly. And using the architrave, we're gonna push that entire jamb up. There we go. I'm gonna slide that packer on top of the door. And just like that, we've now got the door jamb in the right place. And the reason we don't need to go through and level this is because we've already gone through, plumbed up the hinge side, and if that's perfectly plumb, it means this top here is going to be perfectly level if we've got that same gap from the door. With that done, now I can get my gun and I'm going to shoot a couple nails, holding that into the header. I might just do those two for now. One thing I do want to avoid doing is doing any shots close to the corners of those architraves, because I like doing those ones right at the end, just to make sure that our miters are hard too. Since this side's already done, I'm going to go through now and shoot this side. And now I'm just going to grab the architrave for the other side of the door. Grab some more PVA glue, and we'll put PVA glue on this arc. And let's get that miter nice in there. Looks pretty good about there. Same thing, I'm just going to shoot this off only to the jamb for now. I'm just going to sight that quirk, making it perfect. And then for this side, we're going to do the same thing. Get that 3mm packer, and I'm going to slide it down. We'll start about here and get that first nail into that stud. And we'll do that same thing and just keep sliding this down and keeping a consistent gap between the door jamb and the door. And I'm just going to finish off with this upper miter here. Just going to get a nail down into there. And I'm just going to pull pressure onto that one. And that's our miter. Perfect. Alright, perfect. So now we've got that door jamb pretty much held into place. What we're going to do though to lock it into place properly is firstly jump onto this side. And from this side of the door, we can still go through and access this gap here. And I'm going to go through now with my masonite packers. And yeah, we want to go through and pack that jamb. And at this point as well, I'm just going to go through and put a few packers in between where our other packers are on the hinge side. This is something that you could just do at the start when you're putting your packers on and getting that straight. I've just always, for some reason, done it this way and found it a lot easier just chucking them in once everything's straight and keeping an eye on that gap between the door and the door jamb, making sure I'm not bowing it at all. And that's nice and tight. And I'm going to push that in there and just get one nail to hold that in place for now. Alright, so that door jamb isn't going to go anywhere, but I still want to go through with my drill, pre-drill a few holes, and we're going to get some screws in there just to make sure that if you slam that door shut or if you knock it, it definitely isn't going to move. And also, as you can see, I'm trying out some of the new flex tools at the moment as well. I'm not going to say too much for now, There's gonna be a full video coming out on these tools next week, Saturday. All right, so now we're gonna jump on and do the architraves on the other side. I'm gonna do the same thing on my little combo square. Mark that 3mm quirk in each of the corners. Just got a bit of PVA glue seeping through there. And we'll just go through and chuck these architraves on too. Alright, so the last thing we've got to do is nail on all of our door stops. And they're going to pretty much stop the door. So when you swing the door, we want them to be placed. So that door is going to hit that and finish flush with the jamb here. And to shoot these on, I've always done it with 2 people. I'll get someone on the other side of the door and they're gonna hold it flush, hold it shut, and make sure that side lines up with the door jamb. When they're holding it in place, then I'll go through and shoot this on. And even for this example, I'm just gonna quickly get my misso. She's gonna jump on the other side, hold it flush for me, and then I'm gonna show you how we shoot these on, because we're not gonna shoot them completely flush with the door all the way around. So what I'm gonna do is we're gonna start with the top, and I'm gonna put this up there. And firstly, we'll start away from the hinges, and I'm gonna push that so it's hard up against the door. Is that good there? You happy?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna shoot one nail up there. And then for the hinge side, we're not gonna go hard to the door. I'm actually gonna pull that out by roughly 3mm, and we'll shoot that other side there. The reason we have the hinge side off the door by 3mm is because when the door opens, I've actually just put a box behind it then, but when it opens, this corner will swing outwards just a little bit. So if I shut that, door's shut now. If I've got that hard to the door, I'm gonna push it across. It's hard to the door there, and I'm gonna open it. You can feel that corner just rubs against it. So that's why we want to go just maybe not even 3mm, just a couple mil away, and shoot the stop down there. And there you have it. There's the door hung. Everything's installed. Obviously the next step is just to get your handle and chuck that on. That is how you go through and hang an internal door.